How I love this pretty bed. Now I'll rest my weary head. Good night.
This club is truly the gift that just keeps on giving. So to get you caught up, PSG to begin the 2022-23 season were off to a flying start. 19 wins, 4 draws, and not a single loss. However, despite the multitude of successful results, there were a lot of doubts about manager Christophe Galtier's tactical knowledge. That was very evident in the Champions League, as PSG would end up only finishing runners-up in their group. Not to mention, PSG were still heavily reliant on their individual talent. Then there is the drama off the pitch, like Mbappe feeling betrayed by his own club. PSG's initial plan to start the beginning of the season was to buy a striker at the same quality as Mbappe. That way, Mbappe wouldn't be just up top, he would have someone else to support him. Now, options PSG had included Lewandowski and Marcus Rashford. Both fell through though. Mbappe was also supposedly promised a world-class defender, and PSG failed miserably to make that happen as well. And then came 2023, where everything went to a lot of that had to do with the World Cup hangover and also injuries to multiple superstars. Mbappe was out for a couple weeks during the beginning of February, and then Neymar was ruled out for the rest of the season in early March. This all led to a disastrous 2 months where PSG would be eliminated in the Coupe de France. And after a 2-0 loss in the second leg, PSG were eliminated by Bayern in the Champions League. It's now the 5th time in 7 years that the Parisians have been knocked out in the last 16. What's even funnier is the fact that this wasn't your typical no-nonsense Bayern Munich side. This was an unorthodox Bayern side that was filled to the brim with drama, including players and even coaches. But trust me though, it's not like anything was better off the pitch for PSG. At the beginning of March, right back Achraf Hakimi was formally charged by the French court for rape after a preliminary investigation. Not only that, PSG's president is reportedly being investigated on accusations of kidnapping and torture. Now, if you want to learn more about those 2 scandals, there's a video that'll be in the annotations up here. Or here, I don't know. But believe it or not, the drama has only piled up even more. In mid-April, Nice's former director of football, Julien Fournier, accused Christophe Galtier of racism and Islamophobia while he was manager of the club. To be more specific, it was alleged that Galtier had said, quote, "There were too many black and Muslim players in the squad." Hearing these accusations, Galtier was shocked and quickly responded denying these claims and even said he'd be taking legal action for defamation. It was also reported that players at Nice were not happy with the media coverage and extended their support to Galtier. However, the only person to say something to the media was former Nice captain Didier Degarde, who simply said, quote, "The truth will come out in any case." For this next bit of drama, and I promise you don't want to miss this one, I want to throw it back to when that so-called Big Three of M&M was initially formed. Back in 2021, Barcelona were in absolute shambles when it came to finances. Throughout the summer, it was reported multiple times that Barcelona could not register their new signings. This was due to the insanely high wages at the club and La Liga's strict financial rules. That same summer, Barcelona would also need to extend Messi's contract, otherwise he'd become a free agent. Unfortunately for Barcelona though, they wouldn't be able to keep him despite the Argentine offering to cut his wages by 50%. So with Messi as a free agent, there was only 2 clubs that could actually cover his wages: Man City and PSG. However, City had already bought Jack Grealish for over 100 million prior. So unfortunately for Pep, the reunion would not be happening. So that left just PSG on the table, and on August 11th, 2021, the whole football world would be shook to its core as Lionel Messi joined the Parisians on a 2-year contract with an option of a 3rd year. Now with the dangerous star-studded front 3 of Messi, Neymar, and Mbappe, this was to be the year that PSG finally won the Champions League. However, during Messi's first year in Paris, he was severely underwhelming. For one, it took him until November to score his very first Ligue 1 goal. In total, he'd scored just 6 times in the league throughout the entire season. And while he did conjure up 14 league assists and was one of the top assisters in the league, he was absolutely non-existent in the Champions League. Speaking of the Champions League, PSG's Big Three would be eliminated in the last 16 after blowing a 2-0 aggregate lead in less than 20 minutes. And following that result, Messi was actually booed by PSG supporters during warm-ups. This season, though, has seen a lot more improvement from Messi. So far, he's got 15 goals, 15 assists in Liga. But again, when it came to the Champions League, he'd go completely missing whenever the team needed him the most. And just like last year, as mentioned before, PSG were knocked out in the last 16. As this was Messi's second season, and again he failed to win the Champions League, his future was was up in question once more. Many wondered if he would actually extend for one more year with PSG. Well, that question was answered much sooner than most people thought. Recently, after PSG lost for the 9th time this year against Lorient, Messi missed a Monday training session to attend some promotional events in Saudi Arabia. This trip was reportedly unauthorized, and PSG would end up suspending the forward for 2 weeks. Then, reports came out that PSG would not be planning to extend Messi's contract at all. And after learning about all this, PSG's ultras decided to take to the streets. Again. Understandably, they were demanding the board resign for the absolute clown show that had been unfolding throughout the entire season. However, the crowd was also pissed as Messi as well. There were chants like, "Messi, son of a bitch," in both French and Spanish. But then the angry crowd went a little bit farther. They started directing their dissatisfaction towards Neymar even. Chants like "Neymar get lost, Neymar get lost" was tame in comparison to the other shit the ultras pulled, which included protests outside Neymar's home in Paris. Neymar can even confirm that that was indeed his house. When it comes to Neymar, his relationship with PSG has always been very complicated. He's shown moments of true brilliance, but at the same time, he's also suffered so many injuries. And because of that, he's never really been able to find any true consistency. We were starting to see peak Neymar again with how well he started this season, but again, more setbacks. Dreams shattered during the World Cup, and of course, that injury that now has him out for the rest of the season. For this last part, I want to discuss this. Are the PSG fans justified in their acts of outspokenness and protesting? Simple question. This might sound a little unpopular, maybe more unpopular than I think it does, but I think they are justified to an extent. I don't think people should be going to other people's houses unless it's a corrupt politician or a corrupt businessman, but I do think in some regards, yeah, they are justified in what they're doing. Now, why do I say that? My argument is simply that Messi and Neymar love Paris, not PSG. I'm going to use Messi as my main example here because ever since he was signed, his only ever option was PSG. I mean, don't forget that this man was willing to take a massive pay cut to stay at Barcelona. And already that's a red flag for any club trying to sign a player because you have no idea how emotionally invested that player is and how that could affect your team. I think the best way to put it is that I don't think Messi has really ever truly cared about PSG at all. Because look at how he was while leading Argentina, fired up, hungry to win the World Cup, and he finally achieved that goal. Using that example, it is very evident that when he truly cares about something, he'll put in 100% to make it happen. And I haven't seen that passion one bit for PSG. People on social media will always see these protests and call these fans ungrateful. And I totally understand why. I mean, they get to witness Messi, Neymar, and Mbappe all on the same pitch on the same team. No one else is going to be that lucky, ever. And when you see clubs being ran so poorly on the brink of bankruptcy, I totally get it. However, personally for me, I think it goes back to how we started this subject. These superstars love Paris, not PSG. It is without a doubt that PSG fans want the Champions League more than anything in the world, especially since their rivals Marseille are the only French club to ever win that trophy still. And they know they can win it because they have the funds, they have all the money in the world to make it happen. But time and time again, this board fails them. And I think it's just because the board doesn't get what the supporters actually want. I don't think PSG fans necessarily want superstars. I mean, even before the whole QSI stuff, they had Ronaldinho, and he'd only attend one training session and party the rest of the week. They just want more than anything else players that will put everything on the line and fight for that badge, no matter what. I get it, okay? Neymar is sensational. Messi is the greatest player of all time. There are no doubts about that whatsoever. But I think that's a bit of a double standard because why should the fans show their appreciation if the players themselves aren't even showing appreciation towards them? I've never understood this logic of mindlessly kneeling before superstars no matter what. It just doesn't make sense to me. Because at the end of the day, I would rather have an above average player who loves the club from the bottom of their heart than a world-class player who would not give less of a shit if the club folded the very next day. That's at least my take on it. I'd love to hear yours. But of course, a massive shout out to all our patrons. including Janos Balas, Chris Damasceno, Miliue009, Aldipu, Alex Rod, Ulta, Amin Suamez, Aresan, Carlos Anaya, Daniel Ortiz, Francisco Hernandez, Guy, Joao Carvalho, Jonah, Marco Fujimoto, Miguel Munoz, Return Fire, Rory Burns, Slider Kid, Sniffert, The Motor Drive, Tomicus, Vanilla Mexican 17, Victor, Chris Visconsi, Dominic Griffin, Emmett Shea, Lewis, Joe Paricio, Michael Nista, MX Weeb, Nish, Patrick Barley, Thomas, and Unbroken Persona. If you'd like to join the Patreon, there'll be a link down below and up in the annotations. You can follow my Twitter if you want, follow my Instagram if you want, follow my TikTok, trying to get to 20,000 there, and of course you can follow my semi-active Twitch. But until then, I'll see you guys.